call the honourable member for Kooyong and the Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Well, the member for McMahon has some hide. The member for McMahon comes into this place and brings this MPI to the chamber completely in denial of the voters of Australia at the last election. The voters of Australia gave us the most emphatic mandate in 100 years. Labor's primary vote was the lowest since 1903. And you know why? Because they saw a bad government that had no idea how to manage the Australian economy. Despite 600 promises that you were going to deliver a budget surplus, you gave us world record budget deficits, climbing mountains of debt, which is equivalent to $667 billion of debt in the coming decade, and $123 billion of cumulative deficits. And what is worse, an interest bill of more than $12 billion a year, $1 billion a month. You would think that when you're handing out that amount of money, you would become popular. But in fact, the contrary happened. The Australian people woke up to the reality that every man, woman and child in Australia today is saddled with $13,500 of debt. In the next 10 years, that will climb to a record $24,500. That's the legacy of the Labor Party. And when the IMF looked at the spending commitments that the Labor Party left us, they found that it was the highest among 17 advanced economies in the world. Our spending commitments were higher than Korea and China, more than Japan, the United States and Canada, or France and Germany. That was your legacy. So we made one fundamental promise to the Australian people, and that fundamental promise was that we would bring the budget back into balance and we would move into surplus over time. And in Joe Hockey's budget last night, he has done exactly that. There are two major themes in the budget last night. Firstly, it's starting to pay back Labor's debt. Over the next 10 years, we will pay back $300 billion of Labor's debt. And we will, as a result, save $16 billion in just the interest payments alone. And that is an incredible start on the major job ahead of us. The second key theme in the budget last night was the structural reform that will lay the foundation for the future growth and prosperity of the Australian economy. First, infrastructure. A record $50 billion is being invested in transport infrastructure, and when you add together with the states and the private sector, that's $125 billion. Major road projects in every state, including the WestConnex project in New South Wales and the East-West Link in my own state of Victoria. This is a massive commitment to get people to work and to make Australians' lives that much easier. A second component of our growth strategy was to build education and innovation for the future. A medical research future fund worth $20 billion with no parallel around the world will actually be the pride of the Australian educational and medical sectors. And deregulating uni fees, which the member for Fraser completely agrees with and which will have a huge impact on lifting the excellence among our university sector. Those who are on apprentices, those who are in TAFEs, those who are getting sub-bachelor degrees will also get assistance for the very first time from this Commonwealth. And then the third element of our growth agenda was boosting participation, helping aged Australians get back into the workforce with incentives to employers, helping mothers stay in the workforce with a paid parental leave scheme, helping young people move off the DSP or other welfare payments into employment. This is what we are on about. And it all comes back to our fundamental values of free enterprise, supporting the individual and a smaller role for the state. Mr Deputy Speaker, that's what the Australian people elected us to do at the last election. That's why it was a fundamentally honest budget for the Treasurer to deliver, and that's why we will continue to win the confidence of the Australian
Order.
people.